Hi, I'm Roy Collin, the host of the podcast. You can find everything about me by scanning the QR code there or going to roycollin.com. And you'll find my 6 podcasts, the Podfather, helping people become podcasters, the Awakening, exposing fraud and corruption, but with solutions, the Crypto, all things blockchain technology, meditation podcast, speaking podcast, and the Learn Polish podcast. You can also help the show by actually making a donation, visiting the store, or helping my sponsors. I hope you enjoyed this week's show. Welcome to the Awakening Podcast. You can find all our episodes on awakeningpodcast.org. I've got my good friend Peter Wilson back. How could I describe him? I mean, he was in the Navy. He had his own fighting school, but I believe what he's doing now is he's actually fighting the enemy, which is institutions, governments, and everything, which are basically taking money out of our pockets. So welcome back, Peter.
Oh, it's great to be back again. Hope you're doing good and ready for today.
Yeah, looking forward to it as always. And sure, we haven't a clue which angle we go because we end up sometimes discussing something and we both have went down different roads and we come to the same conclusion, which is interesting in itself. So what I want to start off with is insurance companies, because I know the news is kind of, and that's not why I actually brought this up because of the guy in the healthcare thing, but I personally have a lot of insurance claims that have over the years, but recently, I had an injury when I was in May when I took my son, and basically I pulled the groin or whatever, and they said it never repairs or snaps. But then I fell down the stairs the next day because I could barely walk, and I ripped something there. So I was getting the therapy, and they just sent me a letter yesterday. You're not covered. And the same, I went to Spain, and my car was broken into. They took everything, passports, the whole lot. Didn't give me a sausage. I just kept writing, and they said no. And I mean, it's not that I'm going to back off and everything, but that's not just me. Everyone you talk to, it's like they just don't pay out. And just, what's the best way we can deal with these? Because they're scumbags. They take every penny they can. Like I'll give you a few examples. The brother has a leak, and they're saying we only cover the inside, not the outside. I mean, if you've got house insurance, what do you want? The leak is covering the inside. What's the most expensive part is the outside of the roof. So that in itself, why are you paying insurance? I remember with my grandmother, I don't know, is it subsidence? When underneath something, paid insurance all her life. And then they came along and said, oh, we're not paying it. And it was the previous, so they're basically passing it from buck to buck. Had to hire an engineer to oversee who really done nothing. And it was only because of my mother kept fighting the whole lot. Eventually got it paid, but not as much as it should have been, but got something. But it's like 99% of the time, they just say, no, they're taking your money the whole time. And what way can we deal with these scumbags?
Well, I mean, I think I must be really one of the lucky ones, to be honest, because the few years ago I went down and I did a talk in Birmingham. I've stayed in a hotel down there, and I actually I finished the talk, and I went back early to the hotel, and it was dark still, but I parked. I thought I was doing good, parked right under this big light. I thought, well, it's fine. I'll be able to see it. The hotel will be able to see, but somebody, apparently, I don't know, right? But they said they were trying to steal the car. To me, they just looked like they smashed it to pieces. It's like they smashed all the windows. The doors were wrecked, 2 of them. I think, well, if they were trying to steal it, they weren't very good. And the mess that they've made, they would have never been able to sell it or anything, whatever it was supposed to be for. And it's not even like a new car, it's a nice car, but it ain't new. But it was really, I don't know. Anyway, I got up in the morning, seen it all smashed up. Like no cameras. This isn't a hotel car park, they've got cameras everywhere. So I don't know, but they don't work. What's the point then? But anyway, I actually got that claim. And this was it was a few years ago, 2-3 years ago. When I got a lift back to the hotel by, I don't know if you know Mark Sexton. You've heard him talk.
Heard of Mark Sexton.
Right. Well, he was there, and he gave me a lift back to the hotel. Because I just had to get a taxi there in the morning because we're doing it on 2 days. You see, so got a lift back from him, dropped me off at the top. But when we got there, the police were there, just sitting in the car park. They weren't at my car or anything. So we went, oh, I'll go in. Ex-policeman, I'll go and speak to them. So they actually gave me a crime number, right? And I rang up the insurance, and they actually did handle everything. I mean, the car was a wreck. They took it away, and it's classed as a van, right? So they replaced it, give me a courtesy van. It was a great big horrible proper workman's van thing, and but they had it about like 5 months or something, you know. And honestly, they every time I rang up and said, why is it taking so long? It was, oh, we can't get parts because there's a war in Ukraine. That's what they said on the phone. I'm like, oh, okay, right then, But they paid for everything, paid for all of the months that we had the van like on hire. Everything come back paid for. I mean, obviously the premiums went up next time, Mike. But yeah, so I mean, I must have been lucky that way. But you know what you're saying that your mother did? That's probably the only thing you can do is to not give up, because I think that the whole point of them saying no in the first place is that 90% of people will, well, I'm sick of them and just give up. But in I think the only thing you can do, because the contracts are there. A lot of the times they try, like you say, wiggle out of it and say, well, it's this side of the house or it's outside or inside, but I think it's just got to be relentless with them and just not give up and keep going and going and going at them. I think that's the only way.
Yeah. So one of the videos that I saw recently was basically councils, which I have a zero respect for councils, just the way that they operate, but basically writing to the employer to get the money. And you've dealt with that very well. You had a nice video and you've a lot of kind of templates for videos. But I mean, some people, they wouldn't be following, they mightn't see that and everything. So you might explain, because I'm sure that could be an international thing as well, because like the council seem to be just replicating things around the world. So you might just touch on that.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And this is what it was, I mean, I've been really, going into GDPR, General Data Protection Regulations. So when you look at a lot of things that the councils are doing and debt collectors are doing, and any corporation, telephone companies, anything, they all breach data all the time, but they just think that no one will notice, or you don't know. And I've said it many times that I think when you look at it and when you really study what this GDPR protects, I think they got it designed to protect their privacy from us, not thinking we have the ability to read and then investigate and research and think, oh, wow, this is some power in these regulations here. So I got an email anyway, and it was a woman. She was quite distraught, and it was like, like they've went and done an attachment of earnings right before Christmas now, and my employer has said, I'll have to do it or I'm going to get fined myself. And that's complete nonsense. And what you'll find is that a lot of these employers are obviously intimidated easily, unfortunately, and they won't stick up for anybody either anyway. But all of it is a complete and utter breach of data. So let's look at it from this point of view. The first of all is like from the councils. So this was to do with council tax. For whatever reason, it's none of my business why it's not paid. That's not the part of it. But what they have done, the council have gone in and pretended. This is what they do. They pretend they get a court order. They call it a liability order, but it's not created correctly with due process by a court. So there is no court stamp, there is no court signature, there's literally no court order. And we have case law that states if it isn't a legally executed court order, right? Change the word liability to court, because that's what they're trying to say it is. It's a court order. If it's not legally executed, it doesn't exist. So if it's not existing, then you have not got the authority to enforce it. Now, this goes into debt collection to a debt collector company as well as to an employer. So in reality, if you look at it, the employer is actually doing the job, acting as a debt collector. So they're actually deducting it out of your earnings. So, you've went and you've done the work for them, and then they're going to take the money off you and give it to the council. Now, in reality, the only way they can do it is if they can present the evidence of a court order, and they can't give that to the employer. So, I mean, I've got the templates there. I researched them and I went over them, got all of the actual breaches that you can hammer the employer for what they're doing there, because not only is it actually being a breach of your data, so you can actually put them into claim compensation for the breach of the data, which is obviously your anxiety and distress of the breach of the data, as well as the inconvenience. But if you're looking and they're deducting it with no authority whatsoever, that is theft. So, you're looking at the Theft Act as well as the actual employment acts. So they're breaching, I mean, left, right, and center. The employers are like, they probably don't realize how much trouble they're getting themselves into by trying to be clever and siding with the council. But, there's a lot of people that it's happening to now, and they're trying to argue with the employer. And I created this template. So look, show them this. And not only that, but I actually created a pathway to say, well, look, give this to the employer. If they don't actually act on it, then this is your next step, right the way through to showing them how to actually file on the N1, which is, well, all right, let's in England and Wales, that's how you actually do it to the court. Slightly different in Scotland, but how to actually do it and how to file it to actually go and sue them. And you can do it through the small claims court. They haven't got a leg to stand on because there is no legally executed court order. So when the councils are getting these bulk orders, they're not getting it done correctly. There's no due process. Everything is getting breached by it, and it's going under the Bill of Rights, the Magna Carta 1297, which was enshrined in an act as well. It's not, Article 61 of that nonsense. It's actually taken into the Houses of Parliament as an act, but also on the Human Rights Act as well. They're breaching all of that, and they have they've got no morals to start with to actually do that. Now, even if it is a debt, then do it correctly. But you can't go and do it and do a bulk order, no due process. They just go and say, right, we've got all these and we will write. Now, we've actually asked, even on behalf of these people when we're trying to help, and we've given them all the templates, say, right, go and send this in, ask them for a copy of the legally executed liability order. And they'll send them literally a printout from the council on council paper saying this is a magistrate's court order. But I mean, I'll just get a bit of paper and I'll write it out myself and give it to someone. And that's got exactly the same authority. So there is no authority to act. So if you take it to the debt collector themselves, we have the case law very recently, it's got to be about a year ago. It might have been November 2023. And that was Leyden versus Bristow and Souter. Bristow and Souter being the debt collector. And the judge, who is Judge Harrison, stated point blank, there's no court order here, which means under Chapter 12 on the actual Local Government Act, 1989, you've got no authority to act. And it is up to you. You, the debt collector, has a duty of care to make sure that they are doing the right thing, i.e., where they have to be shown and hold a copy of the legally executed whatever it is. This is the liability order from the court. They can't just take it upon themselves. Again, what? Because they're a council, then this letter, this piece of paper, them saying, oh, well, these guys owe me debt. It's literally the mafia coming and banging on your window going, I'm going to break your windows unless you, go and pay Fred down the street, your local gangster. And that's literally it. So, and they actually got compensation paid. They had to pay Mr. Leyden compensation.
Was it the employee or the council had to pay?
Well, the council, the debt collector in this case had to pay the guy that they were actually hassling, right? He could have probably done it in a different way and got even more, but he got it for they had breached that. But in reality, because there's no order, and this is really the crux of the matter, then it's called they have no legitimate interest. So on two fronts, you can actually go for the council and the employer, in this case, for the attachment of earnings. There's no legitimate interest. Now, as soon as they've actually started to correspond, they've already made a breach, right? So you can actually go and claim against them for that breach. They can't then correct it and the breach goes away. I mean, you can't unmurder someone, right? So the breach has already happened, you can still claim against them for that breach, even if they stop it, which I think they should stop it, and then you should still claim. So, but the way I actually designed it and put it out on the video, I went through it step by step. So it was showing, like, this is how you do the first thing, write to the council and the employer, showing them all the breaches that they've actually just committed already, and then give them the opportunity, which, because we're doing it under GDPR, you have to give them 30 days to respond. Obviously, the employer should be responding well before the 30 days, but you just have to have that because that's the way they've created it. But then if they haven't done anything or haven't corrected the behavior within that 30 days, how the next step is, right, well, here's your follow-up, which is going to give them 7 days, and you're going to report them to the Information Commissioner's office or the equivalent, whichever country you're in, and just follow it through till you get, what you're doing is you're actually setting up all your pre-action protocols. Now, you have to follow it, but you know how to follow it if you just, read what I've wrote down, because we read the book and it's the court order. The court, I've got it here, look. We actually bought the book. Look, massive big law book there. But it tells you step by step everything that you have to do to make sure that you follow the court rules themselves. And this is the beauty of it. Now, we are finding this now time and time again. As long as you do what we've shown you and you follow all of the court rules, the court loves you for it. Now, when you're trying to do things outside of court rules, they don't like it, right? They'll not help you. But when they can see that you're using all of the pre-action protocols, you're using the language that they're actually they're used to, and then you do the paperwork even the correct way, that all of the barristers and everything and all the solicitors actually create their paperwork, set it out in a certain way, then they're used to it. They know that you know what you're doing. And when you're doing it and following their rules, that you win. And what you'll find is, right, obviously now we're talking about the councils and they're trying to do this, as soon as the councils have got no idea how to deal with the real court. They've got their arrogance and ignorance is off the scale. I'm back in court next week, against the council. And, what they've actually done is breaching everything from GDPR to equitable principles. And the ignorance and arrogance of them is ridiculous. I was there a couple of weeks ago. I'm going back again, like next Wednesday. And, I was just showing them the paperwork. Instead, you're completely out of the jurisdiction. You've got no right to even be in here. And, even on the filing that we had done, we filed an N244, which is a court request form, if you like, saying, well, this has to be heard in front of a judge. And they got 3 guys sitting on, I think it was 2 men and a woman, right, who were magistrates, like literally part-time people with no legal training or experience whatsoever. And they actually said, oh, we're going to do an N244 hearing. They can go to prison for that. They're actually carrying out criminal acts because they're breaching court orders. It's crazy. But honestly, the councils are just joining in. Yeah, no problem. We can do that. The insanity of it is beyond belief.
And with the letters that you get from, say, the council, because I've had loads of fights with them, and I've gone in talking to the city and they're just scumbags, to be honest with you. They use bully boy tactics and everything is trickery, and they try to get you to sign. So I've realised straight away, sign nothing, because you're basically just making yourself liable. They make it look like you're friends. They have good cop, bad cop usually. But one of the things that I was doing, and I don't know where I heard it, and I don't know how valid it is when they're writing to you and they have a reference number and you're responding, and I'm putting the reference number, but I'm saying, I don't accept this. And I put my reference number because I heard, but I don't know, maybe it's waffle because it's very hard to know the truth. When you actually say reference number, it's like you're accepting what they've sent you. Is there any truth to that, or have you?
I don't really know. I mean, when we are fighting them, because like I say, we just follow the court rules. And if the court sees what you're doing is following their rules, then they will back you up, And if you're doing everything correctly, and doing it step by step, the way doing all your pre-action protocols, it doesn't really matter. It's because at the end of the day, you're actually, when we do it and we're going against them, we're the ones that are taking them to court. We're actually flipping the tables on them. So it doesn't matter if it's the council, the employer, or the debt collection, right? It doesn't matter, because we've actually turned it onto them. So we're not going to then start trying to say, oh, well, we haven't got a contract with you. Well, we want to be in a contract because we're going to actually, show you the breaches you've done by it, but sometimes I've heard, well, what we used to put on, quoting this reference number gives no joinder, right? Not implied or intended, but it doesn't really matter because we're actually putting them into that position. This is the good thing, I mean, what we've seen lately, a couple of the debt collectors, like Lowell and Cabot, right? The threats that come from them when they receive our letter before claim, which is telling them we're going to start legal action against you because you're not showing us like proof that there is a debt. But it's not. So this is the thing where a lot of people sort of go down the wrong alley, let's call it. So what they want to do is that I'm going to fight the actual creation of the debt, the credit. So if they're doing a credit card or a bank loan, even a mortgage, it's all the same. If you've ever studied anything that's come from the Bank of England or the Treasury or how they create credit or finance all over the world, it's not just in the UK, right? It's all over the world. The banks create the money, if you want to call it money, out of thin air. Right. So when you go in and you do let's just say an application for a loan. So it doesn't matter if it's online or in a bank or whatever it is you do. As soon as you put either your signature, even an electronic signature, your sign of nature, you create a financial instrument. And that financial instrument has a cash value, and the banks deposit it in their own accounts as a credit to them. And then they actually transfer little few digits on the screen, and it looks as if you've borrowed money from them. So literally, they're magicking money out of thin air in reality. You can still use that credit, and then you can go and buy a car, you can buy whatever you want. So it's there. It is, actual credit for you. But they didn't lend you, or, you did not borrow any money. It was literally created. And if you hadn't signed it, then it wouldn't have existed. That is an absolute fact. And, you can even read it from the Bank of England. They're not trying to hide it. It's not a secret. But when people try and go down and fight that route, say, oh, well, you didn't lend me it, so I'm going to fight it. I want to see where your accounts are and all of this. Now, we know that the judges have sided with the banks and says, yeah, but your straw man or some entity, whatever it is, has benefited out of that transaction. So now you've got them clothes, you've got that furniture, you've got that car. So you've benefited. Therefore, you should be repaying something. So there's an argument, and a lot of the times they lose. We don't argue that whatsoever. What you need to argue is the ownership of the debt. So let's just say it's that bank loan. We just applied for it. A year later, you've lost your job. You can't afford it. You've stopped making the payments. 3 months after that, the bank's going to cash in an insurance policy, and they're going to get that money back. Remembering that they've already sold the actual instrument anyway. That signature you thought was an application is actually a financial instrument that's been sold on the stock exchange. So they've made money again. They're making money all the time. Now, let's not go down the set the KV trust route, because we know that they'll have put it into the Treasury and got double back as well. So it was a 10 grand loan. They've got 20 grand back from the Treasury. Then they've actually secured it on the stock exchange for another 10 grand. And then when you stop paying, they get the insurance off it for another 10 grand. That's why these banks have got the biggest buildings in the town, because they're making money out of nothing for everything. And then they sell what you think is to sell the debt, but they don't. They sell your data. Okay. So once they've actually sold it to the actual debt collection agency, this is where it crumbles. This is where the system is so greedy that it shoots itself in the foot. So I did a video a few months back. It was sunny. I remember that day. I was on the beach, walking along the beach. So it must have been August, September. And I was just saying that I think it was Cabot, the debt collectors, that month, they had actually issued or applied for 68,000 CCJs, 68,000 court orders for missed payments on debts, right? So they've actually got, in that month alone, however many debts they'd actually got assigned to them, is what they call it. So 68,000 of them, they issued a court order or applied to the court to get a CCJ on people. So 68,000. So can you imagine the directors, and I mean the big directors of the bank, right? They, by law, the Law of Property Act 1989, miscellaneous provisions, section 1, it states that an assignment, the deed itself, is needed for there to be an assignment. It's called the deed of assignment. So they have to sign that deed. Then they have to get it witnessed by an independent witness. Then they have to send it over to the debt collector, and they have to send it so that it gets like registered post, because it's a deed. Now, under most laws, it isn't just UK law, under worldwide law, if you've got a property, a piece of property, like a house even, you can't just give it to someone. You have to exchange deeds. Everybody knows that. Well, in the UK law, a debt is an intangible piece of property. What I mean by intangible, it's not like a house. You're not going to run in, bang your head on the wall and hurt yourself, but it exists. So it actually shows you in bankruptcy law as well. If you go on bankrupt, they'll find out if anyone owes you money, then that's a piece of property that you are owed, right? So there's many, many case laws to prove that the debt is a piece of property, and it's worked and classed as intangible property. Therefore, it comes under the Law of Property Act 1925, but the deeds come under the Law of Property Act 1989, miscellaneous provisions. Now, this is the bit that debt collectors never want to talk about. They only want to talk about the 1925 part. So, obviously, it is a physical impossibility, right? These directors, managing directors of the banks, have probably never been in a bank, right? They don't work, they're just a name, right? That they put on paper. They don't actually have a physical activity job. So they're not signing anything. So all they do, they pretend that there's a legally executed deed of assignment. So the debt collectors, they will send over to you a notice of assignment saying this has been assigned to us. That is not proof of ownership. That is the crux of the matter. Proof of ownership. They are alleging that there is an illegally executed deed of assignment. Therefore, they have proof of ownership of the debt. Now, I don't care if you've already got a CCJ, you can get rid of it by doing this. Or if you're about to get issued with a CCJ, this is how to defend it. Or if you actually want to flip it around and attack them and get compensation for the breach, then you should be going in on this. Where is the copy of the legally executed deed of assignment? It doesn't exist because you didn't get it, because all you buy is block data, because you would literally have all of these, they get paid, what, 2 million a year to be like managing director of Barclays, right? They'll be sitting there signing every single deed of assignment. I don't think so. So, well, they couldn't. It's a physical impossibility. They'd have to clone themselves 10 times and spend 24/7 in that office just signing all the defaults. So it's just an impossibility. It's daft that people would think that it exists. But, and we've had it time and time again. We've had about 2 or 3 this week that have been actually, well, one of them got an offer, and, well, we'll give you the compensation now, just don't go to court, right? Another one says, well, we'll actually pay all your expenses and fees, right? Close all it, get rid of the debt, as long as you don't take us to court. So we don't want to be in getting another CCJ. And another one got it. They were applying for a CCJ against the guy, right? He just put all the paperwork in, put it up into the actual court, and the court said, yeah, no problem. Under CPR 31.6, which is the court rules again. So we're using the court rules, and that is for what we call disclosure. So they have to disclose specific documents that their case relies on. That's what it's called. CPR 31.6, and that is for specific documents, not CPR 18, which a lot of people use, but that's general. It's generalized. You don't want to use that. You got to go on a 31.6 because they're asking for specific documents, which is the legally executed deed of assignment, and they have to disclose it no matter if it hurts their case or supports their case. So that's what you actually ask for. And time again, we're getting it now. As long as you do the paperwork correctly, you've got all your pre-action protocols in line. The courts love it. And the judges are going, yeah, no problem. We want that. And you've got to say to the debt collectors, right, by this time, right, 2 days before the court case, you have that in there, right, or I'm kicking the case out. And again, this week, again, it's boom, gone, disappeared. And then you can apply then for compensation against them because they've breached your data. How? Well, if they did not have the legally executed deed of assignment, therefore there's no proof of ownership. That means there is no legitimate interest for them to have your data. So they've been using your data unlawfully and illegally. Therefore, you can take them to court for a breach. $5,000 easy, no problem, plus costs. So, and this is what we're doing. We're turning it completely against the debt collectors. And that's how you can also use it against any employers that are trying to do an attachment of earnings, or even the banks, because sometimes they'll actually apply to the banks. What a huge breach of data. The banks go, yeah, no problem. Again, a breach of data. So if they're trying to access your bank accounts to actually find out if you've got money in there so they can start taking it out, then again, close them down. It's easy to do as long as you follow the step-by-step protocols.
And have you seen anyone kind of like backdating that? Because I know that I've had so many times they've taken money out of my account, the councils, and it was all fraudulent. I never got it back. And like basically they just they go to the bank and the bank just gives them the money. Like,
Yeah.
because that is a breach of data. So basically at this, and I'm not, obviously it's my case, but I know that there's thousands have the same thing done to them. So basically you're going to the bank and you're going, hey, you've actually removed money from my account, and you go through that process, and they won't have no leg to stand on, really.
I haven't got a leg to stand on. And I'll give you two different scenarios. Again, live ones that we're working on now. And it's so powerful. Again, all you have to do is just use GDPR. You know, they're putting this new bill through Parliament. I've seen loads of posts about it. Oh, it's going to be this, and they're going to see your bank. It doesn't matter, right? Don't worry about what they're trying to say. First of all, it's just all fear porn anyway. Stop putting posts up about stuff trying to scare people, right? You can act against them all the time. If they're going to breach your data, don't worry about what act that they've tried to create. Just fight them with GDPR and you will kick them right up the backside, right? So the two cases that we're working on now, one of them, again, it's the council, right? I'm not picking on a council, but you are a bunch of, anyway. So what the guy done, right? He was at home. The debt collector banging on the door was like, he said he wasn't actually bad, but it really angered him that they had knocked on his door. So him and his wife were there, and you know, he got into a bit of an argument, nearly got into a fight with the debt collector at the door. So, you know, and it was a bad situation, and his wife wasn't happy. Had seen this kind of, you know, aggression and on the door. So she actually like made him pay. So he paid the debt collector, right? Still, it doesn't matter. So we're now going to fight to get that refunded plus compensation for breach of data because he had no authority to knock on the door in the first place. So he was in the wrong and the guy's paid under duress. So we're going to say, look, this has been paid under duress, still a breach of data. So we can still go to the council for the breach of data. Why? Because there was no legally executed liability order, no court order, no court paperwork. And you can even contact the court and say, can you give me a reference number for that? They don't exist. Right? So you can easily prove it as well. And all they've got to do, if there was to beat you when you're putting this case forward, all they have to do is show you the court order. So why don't they? Well, because it doesn't exist. All they got is the little council bit of paper, and it's just simply not valid whatsoever. And the debt collectors, what we're seeing, the letters that are coming back from them is that we don't have to show you that. Oh, yes, you do, right? You are acting with no authority. So it's your duty of care to make sure that you have got the authority to be knocking on someone's door, or even be writing to them or texting them or doing anything, right? So this case, this guy there, we've got all the paperwork set up and designed it, created it all. It was just slightly different because he's already paid it, but it was done under duress. It's a historical payment, if you like, because it's already happened. But now we're going to exactly the same path. It's a GDPR. You've breached the data and you've actually taken money through a breach of data. It's not criminal, but it's very close to. So, they will set that case up for compensation for the actual anxiety, distress, and inconvenience. Obviously, knocking on the door, causing that argument, and all the rest of it. It's quite easy. And the council is still at fault by doing that as well. So, and now if you take that exact scenario, but do it to the bank, and it's the same thing. So if they've applied to the bank, and I know they do this quite a lot already anyway, is that they find out the evidence, the information from the bank, and then get the bank to deduct out of your private funds, which is your private property. It doesn't matter, what anyone else says outside, and unless they can supply you and the bank again, like the debt collectors, they're just acting as a debt collector then, aren't they? So they have a duty of care to make sure that that is a legally executed court order, and there isn't one. They just, oh, we've been to the court. This is our letter. It's a letter from the council. It's got no court stamp, no court-headed paper. There's no court reference number, and there's no signature of anyone, never mind a judge or a magistrate. So, it's just all falls to pieces there and then. And so even if you've got it taken off you, you can still chase it now, even if it's a couple of years ago. Well, breach of data, that's the difference. So change the way that you're, fighting. Now, like I say, this is their rules. So sometimes, I've said it many times, you've got to be private and public. You've got to be jumping from one to the other. You can't be all out of the system, so you've got to be kind of mixed in the middle there. This is an opportunity then to be in the public. You're using their rules against them. And as long as you stick to the rules, follow the court rules, follow the actual articles under GDPR, and you will win. You will win. We are winning. We're winning regularly now.
Oh, fantastic. And like with the ones that are doing to like the employers, because the problem is a lot of people, they chin wag inside in the office, so that when somebody is having a deduction, that usually goes around the office, and then there's the shame and everything, and that can be detrimental to somebody. Like, it's not just getting them to stop. Like, you should be able to get serious compensation, not from just the employer, but the council as well.
Oh, most definitely. You're going to go for the same compensation for the council as you're going to go for the employer. Now, to me, right, people say, oh, but it's my employer. I think, well, I tell you what, right? If they're going to do this attachment of earnings without doing any duty of care, and to actually investigate, well, where's the actual legally executed court order, they're just going to say, oh, it's the council and we're scared of them. Well, that shows what attitude they've got about you anyway. That shows what they think of you. So if that's what they think of you, why are you going to care? Even if, they can't sack you, because then you're going to get 10 times more compensation. You could take them for an unfair dismissal. So all you're doing is you're actually, and this is the thing that most people don't want to do, I think, right? They all want to talk about it, but does anybody want to put into action and go and fight for their rights? Once you know that you are in the right, right? It's no good just saying, well, I'm in the right. You've got to take those steps, and you've got to use, and it is just paperwork, put the correct paperwork in, make sure that you're following all of the proper rules of the court, preparing for a case. You can't just go to a court and smack a case in. You have to do it properly. Build up the pre-action protocols, make sure you're giving them an opportunity to actually solve the situation before you get into a court. Because what will happen is, anyway, when you put that in, you'll probably get offered mediation. So they're going to try and make you settle it, somewhere in the middle before you actually take up the time to have a hearing with the court, which is fair enough. And as long as you're following all them steps, you don't have to agree to anything. We've had a few people that have been offered money by the debt collectors, and it's like, no, I think we'll go there for a hearing because I know I can get a lot more than that. But as long as you're looking like you're ready to listen at a mediation, and then follow on from there. So just follow the rules. Yeah, you'll get compensation from them. And if it's the employer, if that's the way that they're acting towards you, to hell with them. You know, they've got no right to treat you like that. So make sure that all you're doing, everything you're doing is, I love this part because it's like what they do all the time. It's legal. So you're just sticking with the legal system.
Brilliant. So you've dealt with a lot of councils. I mean, I've seen a few and I'm kind of aware in a few different countries. And one, I know people that have worked for councils, and some people say they're so incompetent in there. There's so many people in there that do nothing and they expect you to do the same. So there's some positions that they're in. And the other thing then is like, say, the roads, they come along and they put a bit of tar and they get a shovel and they tap it down, and 2 seconds later the hole is still there. And even in where I'm living, in Łódź, in the center of Poland, they have so many roads under construction, and sometimes you'll see 3 people there. One place where I used to live, above nearly 10 years ago, they were doing the main road. It's still under construction. 10 years, you know, and it's like there's so many. So like this is an international thing as well. The councils are basically, I believe it's causing frustration with the individual because you're taking twice the time to go to work, so you've anger. And like, why would you start opening 50 roads to repair, do the 10, fix them, next, and just like look at how do you control the people working there, that if they're just bored or just creating systems that you just have to tick boxes, like to shortcome that. Is there any councils in the world that you're aware of that are actually something that people are proud of? And the other thing is, like, how do we attack these idiots? Because they're just making everybody's life, you know, just frustrating us all.
Just all the system is there designed to make everyone miserable, though, isn't it? I mean, that's the whole thing. If you think about it, it's like, you know, I get up 5 o'clock every morning, and you know, it's like I like to get myself ready, get ready to take the dogs out. I've only got one left now. Like, you know, to get out, you know, so I'm out nice and early, not bumping into people, because the little one's scared of everything. But I know you just, as I'm going out, and this is like, say, like 6 o'clock in the morning, as we're walking down, you can see there's people getting up, and the TV is on, right? You can see it through the front window, and they're watching the news. I'm thinking, what on earth are you doing? How can you prepare for a positive day by watching all of that propaganda and literally bullshit that's pouring in? None of it is true. It's all lies, right? They'll show you like so many different things that are wrong with the world, and it's all someone else's, like, it's Putin's fault. You know, if you live in this country, you know what I mean? Even the roads getting closed, that's his fault. Yeah, they'll convince you. But, you know, this is the negativity. So, like, imagine that. So you're putting in that negative frame straight away. Then you want to try and go for the people that are going to work, right? And they've closed half of the roads. So they're doing it where, this is hilarious, right? So, well, to me it is. So they've closed off this road, a main road for people to go to and from Newcastle, right? Just up here, because they're building a new railway station. So this town over here, when I was a kid, they had a beautiful railway station, you know, like the big old-fashioned railway stations. So they knocked it down and they stopped all the trains going there, you know, and then that was in the late 60s, early 70s. So now, right, they're building 2 new stations here in that one town, and another station further on, and actually another one there. So there's 4 or 5 new stations that they're building now. But because of that, they're making all the roads slow, because it's, you know, there's traffic, because the amount of traffic going in and out of the stations. So, and now think about again how this ties in. They're making everybody miserable so they can, like, make all the roads slow. Then further up, they're actually just closed all the roads and not really explaining why. So you're getting through where they're building the new stations, but then you come into something that, well, there's nothing happening, you know, and then there's signs on the road saying, you know, slow on the motorway, 50, 50, 50, 50. And then you get to the end of it and you think, well, what was that for then? It's like, then everyone's spinning off. Think, well, but what was that? There was nothing actually there. You know, that's just to frustrate people. But, you know, again, the actual insanity of it, it's not just about driving people down to misery, but they built this new, these however many new train stations, they're using the old lines that were there from the beginning, right? So they're not using modern lines, is what I mean. In Newcastle, for instance, around Newcastle Gateshead, I don't know how far it goes, but they've got what's called a metro. It's like an underground, solar electric, so blah blah. This is an old diesel train. So they've opened this up. It's going to be, I think this weekend they're going to run one train from the very end of it, which is like the end of the line, three towns down, and it's going to go to Newcastle just once. That's it. I don't know why they celebrate like the opening of this diesel train. So hang on a second. So if we're actually supposed to be going for this net zero nonsense, and you're opening this brand new, but you're reopening this line with an old diesel train there. There's going to be pouring up stinking diesel, not to mention, obviously, it's right next to a wind farm where all the diesel actually makes the things spin around anyway, and it's full of oil. It's insanity, but how they can actually be pretending that we've got this like climate change, so they need to actually stop everybody having energy and increase all the prices like insanity wise, and then stop everybody having a car so that we can all get on a dirty engine, diesel engine, right, and take us up to the town that used to be there like 20, 30, 40 years ago. Wow, this is just crazy, man. Absolute insanity.
Is it that we tried to get a petition? Like, how do we take down or make change in a council? Because, like, nothing changes. And that's the frustrating part. It's been like this for all the time. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like you become conscious of it. And once you're conscious of it, then you're watching it and you see it. Like, can we get information from the council? Like freedom of information and stuff like that. Can you go and get the breakdown of how they're spending money? Can you get the breakdown of actually how they're doing the roads and stuff like that? Can you, and then kind of tackle that and maybe take a case again? Do you know anybody doing something to stop them in their tracks?
I know loads of people, hundreds of people, in fact, that do freedom of information requests all the time, but they never get anything with common sense back. They never get any real information back. So, I think in reality, it's like a complete and utter waste of time. I'm not being rude or anything to anybody. I think, do whatever you can. I totally agree with trying to get back at the system, because it's a completely and utterly broken system. It was designed that way. It's not got worse. I mean, I have a cousin who when he left school worked for the council. I don't know, physical work, digging holes in the road, whatever. And he says it was terrible. I mean, this is like going back like 40 years, and he would, he said, no one's working. He actually left, joined the army and whatever, I've got to get out of it, just that, and then he did spend like the rest of his career in the armed forces, but he just says that nobody works. So, and if you start to work, they all start picking on you to stop you working because they don't want anybody showing them up. We can't do that job because if it's done, then there'll be nothing else to do. And then we'll have to find something else to do. It was like that all the time, he says. So, I mean, it's never changed. And I think the system is the system there to simply just drive people crazy and frustrate people and make them miserable, I think, inside and outside the council.
The next one is probably one that frustrates everybody. I think it's prior to 1913, there was no income tax as such. And then they started taxing and taxing and taxing. So there's loads of people looking at how to get out of paying income tax. And, I've heard cases that if the money that's being put is funding wars, then there's a clause that because of some contract that was signed that you don't do that. Just in your experience, because I know it's a kind of a hairy one. You can't exactly tell people what to do. They have to do their own due diligence depending on the country. But how do we get out of paying them? The people that are actually taking the money with our sweat equity and having junkets and just blowing it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if we go on to the talking about terrorism, they are actually committing acts of terrorism, and it's been well proven. Obviously, they're funding and backing genocide, yeah, and it's easily proven. So I've got a friend called Chris Coverdale, and he actually has a setup with a private trust where you can get all of his paperwork, you can get his templates and everything on what to write to the either the councils or to HMRC, and you're actually not going to pay any tax, because unless you prove to me that it's not going towards funding terrorism, on these acts of genocide, blah blah. So you can, I can't remember his website, but you can go on to his website, search just Chris Coverdale, tax, whatever, and what he does is he puts it into a trust. It's a revocable trust for a year. And then if they haven't provided that information at the end of the year, then you've paid your tax into the trust, then the beneficiary is allowed to take it back, and the beneficiary is you. So, you do have that option. I've never done that. I don't know, but you can go and check that out and have a look at it and see what it is. The way I see it is, who is it that, or what is it, that is actually going to be or should be paying tax? The way that I can say, if you read the actual legislation in the UK, they actually have to pass that bill every single year for them to collect tax from the tax-paying persons. So you have to search out and figure out what is a person, and then you can take it from there. If you feel that you are a person, then go for it. But if you think you are not a person, right, that you would be the living man, then a man can't be taxed, because then that would be slavery. So you have to do like you said, you have to do a lot of your own research. But I do know a lot of people that do it, and then they actually write to HMRC and say, I'm not paying anymore because I don't agree or anything like that. To me, it was like, why tell them? Like, why argue with them? What you should be doing is closing down your accounts. So if you've got if you're signing for, what do they call it again? Self-assessment accounts, you're agreeing. You're actually creating
you're declaring.
Yeah. So stop doing it. But don't just I'm refusing to send in any self-assessments. Close down your accounts, because you'll have an account, you'll have an agreement, you'll have a contract. Once you've got them all closed down, so I don't do that anymore, right? I'm not a person. You don't have to tell them that. Just say, well, at the end of the day, the only thing that can be taxed is your estate, right? What is your estate? It's your full capital name. I mean, most people should know that by now. So the only thing paying the tax is the estate. So just separate yourself from your estate. Your estate doesn't do anything. Your estate is the only thing that can get taxed. You can't, because you're alive. The estate, what can the estate do? Can it go out and earn money? Well, it can't, because it's just a piece of paper. So, make sure you split it for the estate from you. But then also, like I said, I know lots of people who argue with them and fight with them and tell them, I'm not paying any, I'm not doing it. Just close your accounts down. And then once you've actually got rid of all your contracts, then you can be standing in the private as a man, rather than, publicly shouting at them, because they're never going to go away.
And looking over your shoulder, because sometimes people think, I just won't pay it and then I'll fight them. And then what happens is there's penalties and everything. And just because they've done it the wrong way, then they end up either in jail, or they end up paying triple the amount, because with the penalties interest that they apply, they get in more trouble.
But see, this is another thing, because that in itself that actually, because you've signed a contract and they're actually saying that you've agreed to the fines and the fee, but no one's allowed. If you have a look at the Magna Carta 1297 edition, was what I'm talking about, and also like the Bill of Rights, it tells you you're not allowed to be fined unless it's actually been proven. But they just go and stick all these fines on, and they say it's not a fine, it's like a charge for a breach of contract. So close down the contracts, and then they can't do it.
So this is one that is in the States at the moment. First of all, there was a Hunter Biden pardon, right? And I mean, I've seen documentation. There's a guy that has created a website when you just see. I'm not going to include it in the show notes, because it'll probably be banned and removed and everything, like a load of stuff that I do. But he's definitely a pedo. I mean, from the stuff that I've seen, and I've heard recently he's given pardons to a load of others that had lots of porn and everything, and child porn and stuff like that, and images, and like these are sick people that are looking after their own thing. And can we, with common law, and I mean, like, it's not affecting me because I'm not connected with it, but if I had somebody that my child there or whatever, like there is a lot of people that have been hurt by these scumbags that have done it, can they go via kind of like the common law and overrule a pardon? Because the reality is that's one system, and there's times you step out of it, because it's like, how can you just say, yeah, he's free to go, when everybody knows that they're guilty? So is there, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I don't know how you would do it if you wanted to try and, like, you know, it would have to bring a private prosecution is what you would have to do.
Yeah.
So like what you've said, if it was a party that was involved in the scenario who had been or had a child that had been hurt, then they would have to organize their own private prosecution. How that would go against them would be a different matter, you know, because, you know, if you go back to, like, you know, lockdowns and everything like that, and there was a few different groups that apparently had tried to do private prosecutions against people like Matt Hancock and the like, you know, never seen light of day. You know, it was like, it doesn't matter what happens. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, the BBC itself, I'm not even going back to sort of like Savile. I'm talking about now, when they're having these people that have got, like, you know, sick pornography, like on their phones, right? Whatever it's called, you know, like with yeah, and they should be like pedophilic images, right? And they're getting, oh, don't do that again, right? Here's a fine of 50 quid or whatever, you know. And then you've got somebody who was waving a placard at a protest and is getting 3 years, ends up committing suicide in prison. I mean, this is the and there's no dual policing, there's no dual justice, there's no two levels. Of course, it bloody is, and it's them and us, simple as. And you know, anybody that can't see that is just simply not looking and doesn't care. You know, it's crazy insanity, and this is as well, right? When I tell people, make sure you never ever use a solicitor, or a lawyer, or attorney, a barrister, whatever name you want to give them. All these people that were getting arrested and then prosecuted with no due process whatsoever, completely going against their actual own rules, the judicial system, getting told by the government what to do, which is supposed to be completely separate. And then what happens, the barristers or solicitors were saying, look, plead guilty, when they hadn't done anything. And I say, if you plead guilty, that you'll get looked after. Plead guilty, 3 years in prison, right? So, you know, I mean, if you just stay away from barristers, what you should have done is done it on yourself. Be like, you know, a man or a woman, and putting it in there. There's many different ways, because none of it is criminal, by the way. All courts, they're not criminal courts. They're all commercial, and they're all just after money. And all they're doing is actually dipping into your trust and taking the money. There's a value to everything, including murder, you know. So, but like, never ever use or listen to any barristers or solicitors or anything. They are on the other side. They're sworn to the court, and they will make money for the court. That's all, nothing else.
With the police, because I mean, obviously there's the speeding or the walking fines in some countries, but even like, say, what we call peaceful protest, because I mean, there's people, especially with all the asylum, you know, military men coming in or from prisons, who knows, because there's so much crimes happening all around the world, and people then are protesting. You know, rightfully, we don't want, you know, 1,000 people in our little village of 200 people next to a school. Totally, you know, legit to, and then they're the ones getting it. When they're being approached by the police, because a lot of the time they go into panic or they go into anger and everything. And I know that when you start talking, it's all recorded and they use it against you. What's the best way? And I believe that it's like they make their statement and they get you to sign it. So I say sign nothing, or else under prejudice that you were forced to do it, you know. That, so like, when they're in that situation, what's the best way to deal with? I mean, that's the time they're not police. They're scum, because they're actually just doing what they're told instead of looking after people and doing the law, the proper protection of people.
Yeah, but you got to remember as well. I mean, when you see it on the cars, we see it a lot on and it says like, proud to protect, written on the side of the police car, they're not talking about us. Like the police going right.
It's probably changed now to pride to protect, because I've even seen in Ireland they had a pride police car, and you're like, what? And even changing the siren. I don't know, was that in Ireland or in the UK? The noise, it wasn't the normal Nina kind of sound. Like it was like a kind of comedy sound that they were playing.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a joke, but it wasn't.
No, I mean, anyway, we're not, God. But, it's just the police were set up, right? Remember, they were set up to protect, but it was to protect what they would call the wealthy, the elite, from us, from the lower class, like the working class, the peasants. That's what the police were set up for. So they didn't have to use a standing army, so that's the only reason that they were there. So they're still doing the same job that they were doing when they first created, to protect the rich and powerful from the masses and the mob, is what they used to call them in Rome. So that's all they're there for. So they're not there to help you. And when they're proud to protect it, yeah, but it ain't you they're talking about. But remember, doesn't matter where you are or basically what country you're in, you all have the right to silence. So I remember, let's go back, we're talking about lockdown, and one of the winters there was, I can't remember which one, but it was snowed up here anyway in Newcastle. It snowed everywhere, little great snow. And we've got the moors just outside, not far from St. James's Park and Newcastle United. Big hills, great for the kids when it snows like that. And there's hundreds of people there. And, on sledges, on skis, just even on bin liners, sliding down, and so the police went, oh, you're not allowed to be here. We're in lockdown, you're all going to die. You know what I mean? Got to stop breathing that fresh air. You don't know what it's got in it. And obviously I got sent a few clips with it, and it was like the police were complaining, saying no one will interact with us. They won't talk to us. Well, if you're not going to interact with them, you're not going to talk to them, then they've got no power over you. So you literally don't interact with them. I remember studying quite a lot with this guy, American guy, and he said, you've got to keep following them rules when they're saying, well, he said it stay 6 feet away. We said 2 meters or whatever. It says all of them officials and all them police, he says, I always make sure I stay at least 6 feet away from all of them. I don't want to have to have anything to do. I never speak to any of them, never interact with them, don't look at them, just like nothing whatsoever. So I would just literally never look at them, don't speak to them, don't even say hello. And if they say anything to you, nothing that they say to you is innocent. Absolutely nothing. Even them saying hello, how are you doing? You don't answer. You don't answer questions. And you don't tell them, I don't answer questions. You just say nothing. Right? Just think of the song, Silence is Golden. Follow that rule. And if anywhere in the UK, just think of Rice versus Connolly, 1966. They arrested the guy there because he wouldn't give his name and address, and then they kicked it out because, well, he's got the right to remain silent. He didn't need to give you his name and address. Same thing applies. Unless they catch you murdering somebody or burgling a house, right? You've got nothing to worry about, so you don't give anybody your name and address or details. And they only want it so that they can get you to join that. Once you've got the name, the address, because they want your name, because it's the surname that they want in full capitals. Well, that's your set of KV trust, right? They want your address because that's going to give you your seat in the law. And then they want your date of birth, which you haven't got because, it's you were born, not birthed. Then once you've got that there, that's tying it all together. So you've got the circle, and that's you tied in with their joiner, and they are going to drain your set of KV account. You just got to stay away from them and not speak to them.
And what I'm seeing a lot, I don't know if it's happening in the rest of the countries, but I think I've heard it in Wales as well. But here, up the road from me, they've now a 40 kilometer, which I believe is to 25 miles per hour. I mean, I can cycle faster than that, and
they're hidden inside in a driveway on that, you know, so they're just constantly catching people. When you're pulled in for, I wouldn't say speeding. I mean, I know there's dangerous driving, you know, somebody that's doing like, you know, 150 or something like that. We get that. But like for something like a 40, that there's no way it should be a 40. And just stupid things where they just intentionally put markers and they're just waiting there to catch people, because like you can easily not see that. And I can understand, you know, that like remaining silent then, or what's when they go, hey, they put up their red stick to call you in. What's the best way to do them?
I mean, same thing though. I mean, like, you know, you don't have to do anything more than what you're actually required to do. Let's just say that you're going to stick with the acts and statutes. So, like, I mean, I think it's 163, the Road Traffic Act in the UK. They can stop you without any reason. They can just stop you, you know. But I mean, you know, I would just say, well, there's my license. But I mean, you know, I wouldn't be giving them any other details. It's got nothing to do with them. You know, and I see loads, like everybody likes to send me videos. This is like, you know, like, and they're asking you, oh, where you going? Where you been? It's got to do with you. You know, he's just, everything else is silence. Just there's my license. Right? You can check the car. You know, it's insured, right? But I mean, the thing is what you shouldn't be having a car in your name anyway, right? You shouldn't own anything. You should be protecting everything like that. But you know, like the thing that really, like, more than like the Road Traffic Act stuff that annoys me more than anything is these private parking companies that didn't exist a few years ago, right? So now they've got, like, everywhere you go, you like trying to park somewhere, all of a sudden, right, these signs have come up, and this land, you know, is like, if you park there, you're agreeing to a contract, right? If you stay here longer than an hour, it's going to cost you 100 quid because you agreed to the contract because we've stuck a sign up, right? I mean, it's insanity. I mean, but the thing is, and you can look at this, go through contract law, check in contract law, and who is allowed to actually agree to these contracts, right? So if you have a car, for instance, so you're not the keeper in the UK. It used to be written on the document, your logbook. In England, Wales, they call it a V5, and it states who is the keeper. So you're not longer the owner, you're just a keeper of the car. So you shouldn't have your legal fiction title on there. It's not your name, is it? It's your legal fiction title. So it should say something like trustee, or Smithery Private Trust, or Smithery Company Limited, right? Smith Limited, anything like that whatsoever. So when you're going to go into these private car parking sites now, and which is everywhere, you know, even like you go, one guy is in an argument at the minute with McDonald's, right? Because the car park at McDonald's, if you park for more than an hour, you get this £100 charge because you've breached their contract. You know, he was asking me to help him. I said, I'm not going to help you. You shouldn't be eating McDonald's. So but you'll have to remind me. I'll have to tell you something about that McDonald's as well after. But you know, you go anywhere like that you used to just go park. Now you've got like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and then you're going to get 100 quid, 2 minutes, like over whatever, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours that you're out, you know, and they say it's a breach of contract. Well, if you've got your car and it's registered, the keeper or the owner, whatever country, if it's different, is the limited company, or is your trust, or it says trustee. Well, all of those are dead entities. Now, you may as well say, oh, so are you, but like, you know, they're saying, and in their words, not mine, right? It's in their words, a natural person can make a contract. So a natural person can read that sign and decide to stay or not and form the contract. A limited company is a piece of paper. So a limited company cannot make that contract. A limited company cannot look at that sign and say, oh, well, I'm going to do that. So it's an inability to make a contract. Same as a trust, same as a trustee. I know it works, but I've done it. I've sent it off saying, who are you talking to? You know, just says trustee on there. Who is it? Who's the trustee? They never ever come back because there's nothing that they can do. They can't enforce it in a court because they can't take that word to court. It doesn't exist, right? And they might say, oh, I can take limited company, but it's, yeah, they may do, but then you can prove easily in court that there was no contract. You've got that limited company is incapable of having a mind, and a limited company hasn't got the mind to actually a meeting of the minds. You can't have a meeting of the minds. That means there's no contract. Forget the equal exchange. I mean, there's none of that, is there? But right, definitely not a meeting of the minds, and you need the pillars of contract law to actually have a contract. So bear that in mind. Any of them parkings, get your name. You shouldn't be owning anything, and you shouldn't have your name on a car, right? You should say trustee or limited or private trust, something along those lines, and then avoiding all of that grief and that hassle. And for the insurance, it's still the same thing. You're just insuring as a driver, right? So if that's what you're worried about, you don't have to worry about anything like that. And if you did ever get stopped, and it's, you know, it's like, you don't have to say, oh, by the way, this is a private trust and here's all my details. No, there's my driving license and I'm insured to drive. End of story. And that's all there is to it, you know? That's how I would be handling all on that, you know? But about McDonald's, this is hilarious. I think a few shows back, and I was telling you that, you know, we had, I was telling people you need to be using the GDPR when you're going into these shops, when you're going into the supermarkets, when you're going into the shopping malls, the ones that you find so annoying, right? They were talking about before we come on the show. Right. Well, they're taking your data. As soon as you walk in there, there's that massive camera taking your data. You need to ask to see that. Under GDPR, Article 15 is very clear. And that's a European law, by the way. It's not just in the UK. That's across all of Europe. You can go in and say, under Article 15, I have the right to request that data. And I need to see all data that you're processing on me, even the images that you've took as I've walked in this building. Right. So, you know, and that's, we've got it proven easily in one of the shopping centers in Manchester. They actually, they refused to give him it, the guy. Right. And he had it on video. He had it recording. Once he'd actually sent that to the head office, he got he went to every single area in one of the biggest shopping centers in Europe. They had to blur out everybody else's face, remember? Right. So somebody had that job to do. What a pain in the neck that was for someone. Then they had to send it to him from every area he went to, and they had to pay him compensation, and they had to train the entire shopping center on GDPR. If anyone ever asked again, can I see the data? It's not a no. There's no such law. Get out. Right. You have to say, yes, no problem. Let's get your name and address and we'll sort that out for you. So this guy we have our private group. Right. So we meet every week, and I've told them this is what you should all be doing. Not just you, but get massive groups to do it every week. I tell you, how long would it take before the shops said, we have to get rid of these cameras? You know, we're sick of these cameras. CCTV is fine if you want to watch for people shoplifting or whatever it is. But like you're trying to buy your stuff and there's a big picture of you, right, on the self. Not only have they got rid of the people on the tills, you've got to work for them for free, right? Pack your own bags and everything, but scan everything as well. But they get taking a great big picture of you. So whenever we go, we're like this. It's like, you know, I'm sick of arguing and putting the bins, the bags over the actual cameras, and you're getting into arguments with them. Stop doing that. But anyway, so our group, I've told him to do this. So one of them has went into all these different places. He's got, I think he said at the last count, 19 cases now that he's taken them or preparing to go to court. And one of them was like McDonald's. They're all franchises, so it's like, you know, it is just this single one where he is. He's recording. They don't know that. So he's walked into place, went, oh, I want that data. And they just went, no, get out. You know, you're not getting that. You know, it's no law, such thing. Get out. Refuse. You're allowed, very specifically under Article 15 of GDPR, you're allowed to request it verbally or in writing. Doesn't have to be just in writing. You are allowed to give them a verbal request. And it's just as legally binding as you writing loads of notices to them. So he got the name, the address of like the head office. He's wrote to the head office. They've said, no way, there's no such law. right? And also they didn't refuse, you're lying, right? He's got it recorded. And they said, we know that they told you to go and speak to head office. He's got it recorded, so he's going to hammer them. But then they also pulled out this way, and you're asking for compensation. Well, there was like a case law that they put. It says it shows here that such compensation cannot be paid for the distress for data, misused data. But the case law that they used, as soon as he showed me the letter, I thought, oh, it's all right, I'll research this. It's like, because I know it's going to be so small and ridiculously specific why this case was cast out, right? So what we found out is like somebody got sent an email by the wrong address, right? So that was the data breach, where they got the wrong email address. So, they applied for compensation. You're not going to get it from something as silly as that. And that's the case law that they were trying to say. He's not allowed compensation when they've refused to provide his data, which is significant for anxiety, distress. What are you doing with my data? Who are you selling it to? What are you actually gathering all of this information for? Or my images for? That's weird. And that's very intrusive. That's the facts. So that's the argument you would be putting forward. So now we've just went on to the next stage now, where we're preparing to actually line it up for, well, when we apply to the court, I'm not saying we get a hearing, because they'll probably pay out before we get there. But, it was they have to be careful, these corporations, on what they actually say, especially now where you can get even like, I've got my one-legged glasses. Look, the other one fell off, but I can still get a little camera on it and be filming exactly what happens. It's we're getting to very, very switched on now, how we can catch you breaching our data. So yeah, a little McDonald's story there.
And because I know, I like the GDPR is in Europe, but for those in America, have they anything similar that protects them?
There is privacy laws, very strict privacy laws. It's not the same, and I'm busy building up like procedures on how to do it, because I've got a lot of members in Canada and the United States, so I have to sort of like revise it all for them. It's it is powerful. They have got strong privacy laws, as well as consumer. It's all about consumer laws as well. Same, like we've got the consumer well, I can't remember what it's called, Consumer Act over here.
Protection Act, is it?
Something like that. But you've got like, if it was finance for banks and stuff, you've got like the FCA as well. Consumer Credit Act. That's it. You have a Consumer Credit Act as well. So all of that comes into play, and they definitely have that in the States and in Canada. You just got to word it slightly differently, but they've got a good protection there as well. So I'm busy working on that, on how to actually create the templates for them as well.
No, excellent. And which, I suppose we'll finish up on this one, and I'm hoping we're going to get you back each month, because you're giving so much valuable information. It's incredible. I've heard of peace officers. I know there was the guy, I think his name is Chris Smith. He's a kind of heavy guy that was in Scotland. But then there was like there was argy-bargy going on with some other company or partner or something like that. But I know somebody that was trained in that. And like, it was kind of sounding, oh, this is good, that, people were going to be like a peace officer instead of a police officer. Is there actual peace officers there? Was this just somebody pulling something from the sky? Or what do you know about peace officers?
I know that there's like a big movement where they are training people on how to be peace officers. So that, and they watch over, like say, for instance, they've got people going and hassling it, like the debt collectors going to the doors, so that they can like monitor it and see exactly what's going on. And I know you've also got things like the rapid response team. I don't know if you've seen that. I mean, I'm not saying that I agree with everything that they're doing, but like, it's definitely, I think, on the peace officer side, where they're training them on the specific acts and statutes on how to actually stand in the law, so that they can actually watch these people come in, the debt collectors, because they breached that. They should be concentrating more on the GDPR and the Consumer Credit Act as well as the FCA, rather than just trying to say a breach of the peace or where was the actual warrants and all that, because there's so much more to do with it. And GDPR, again, see that they overlook it because they think it's silly. It is so powerful, In fact, this weekend, I should mention this Sunday, I'm having a whole day webinar. So, if you go on to the link on my link tree, the top one, it'll take you to the webinar. You can get in there for the whole day. I'm going to show people how to go from the very beginning all the way through, not just on debt, but on councils, but also on the supermarket thing, but on the cars, like covering so much the entire day. It's going to be from 10 in the morning, I think 4:30, 5 in the evening. And we're going to show them step by step all of the paperwork that they need to do. All of the templates will be available. It'll all be recorded as well, and it's going to go into a little mini course, which if you can't attend the whole time or you can't do any of it, it'll all be recorded for you, put in there with all the templates, with all the step by steps, literally everything on how you'll get them into a position to put them into court where you'll be able to get compensation. And it's not just about making money off them, but it's about putting them in the place and holding them accountable for their actions. And the actions that they're taking they are breaching your data left, right, and center. And they think that they can get away with it. So, just this, if you haven't got anything to do this Sunday, get yourself along there. And, the whole thing, the whole day, just brilliant training, step by step, going over everything about GDPR, on how you can hold all of these corporations to account, actually get money in compensation back for them, and stop them using your data. You can put yourself into a much better private life by closing a lot of these data companies down. Even online, you can do it. There's so many online, people just got to get it out of their mind that they've got to give away the data so much. They throw it at people instead of trying to become private. But yeah, this Sunday, 10 o'clock, make sure you go and have a look at the links.
No worries. And as always, it's a pleasure. And I think what we might actually start doing in the new year, if you're up for it, I'll do them, because I do a lot of lives on StreamYard with fellow podcasters, that we'll do this live, and I'll share it to my kind of YouTube and Facebook, and then I can look at the comments coming in as well, so we can kind of address some of the comments from the listeners. And also, like, even those that are listening now, if you want to write into me, and I'll make sure I log it all and cover whatever you discuss. So you might just let people know, one, where to find you, and also just mention your event on, I think, 1st and 2nd of February as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a big event next year. And the thing is, on there, we call it Checkmate the Matrix Live. It's going to be in Newcastle, right in the heart of party town of Europe there. So a Saturday and Sunday. So it's a 2-day event. Now, we've got people coming from all over the world, and it's about freedom. So we've got Vit Jedlika, who is the president of Liberland, and he's come to do a presentation on, obviously, the whole thing is about freedom. So it's going to be on how to become free and how to live in the private. We're going to have people talking about, like, right, if you want to call it common law, because people get what they mean by that. So, but how to live lawfully rather than legally, but also how to actually step out of the system. We're going to show them, like, decentralized finance. We're going to show them on how to actually stop being so reliant on the bank. We're going to show them even we have the ability to put them in touch with people that can create your own bank. So you can do it through private trust and have your own bank. So the amount of information that's going to be put out to people there, the knowledge share is going to be phenomenal. So, not only that, but it's in a fantastic venue in the center of Newcastle upon Tyne, right next to the Tyne River. Okay, it's going to be February. It's going to be a bit chilly, but the scenery will be amazing. And the venue itself is outstanding. So we've went for it, make sure that it's a fantastic event. The speakers will be brilliant, covering so many different aspects. The MC that we got for the weekend, he's 5 times Mr. Universe, more times than Arnold Schwarzenegger, strongman competition legend. He'll be doing the MC, and so the whole thing is being organized brilliantly from top to bottom. So again, you can check that out, checkmatethematrix.com. That's easy to find that one.
Brilliant. I'll make sure I put the links, the audio and the video. Thank you very much, Peter, and I look forward to, hopefully each month in 2025
we'll do the same thing and just keep going if you're up for it.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely.
No, because you're helping so many people, and I think even just, so for those that might be kind of listening to Peter for the first time, just go into my website, awakeningpodcast.org, type his name, and you'll see all the different episodes that are there, and you'll be able to follow all the different stuff, because we've constantly talk about different things. So thanks very much. So that's you find everything on awakeningpodcast.org. Sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends, and comment. And as I mentioned, just send me in some messages of different things you want me to discuss, and I'll make sure I'll cover it in the next conversation. Until next week, take care. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. As mentioned at the start, you can find my 6 podcasts on roycollin.com or scan the QR code if you're looking to start a podcast or do a podcasting tour. I help with that. Also, if you're looking for a virtual assistant, we also have that service. And you can help the show by visiting the store, supporting our sponsors, or making a donation. Until next week, take care.